Today I'm going to be talking about the core being the foundation, which is often hard to experience. We might say that I'm standing on a foundation. It's the core underneath. Now I'm going to be talking about how the core can be in the middle and be surrounded on all sides. So it's like you take the flat ground and kind of wrap it inside of itself. So the bottom of it is the inside, and it's like a flat ground. It's kind of like a globe. And this globe has a foundation on all sides. You can see my ink on my fingers kind of matches the bruise on my head. So this foundation becomes a core. And so much can surface, can come out of it, keep coming out when this core density is denser in the core, like the Earth's core is like so tight, is surrounded by openness, like more soil and water, right? So we have this in our experience of the world. And I'm going to start by sharing from a brilliant woman named Sandra Chuma. She was on a podcast with Robin Long on habits. And these are some of her comments and takeaways in my own words and in her words. And I feel it's very valuable for this topic because habits create, these rock formations are like habits. These, currents flowing in a certain direction is like habits. The salt content over time being deposited from, the area that it is habits for us. That's how we experience our habits over time. These small little things, but doing things the same way. So she says, first of all, we got to understand the brain uses loads of energy to try new things and habits. To make new habits, you must be able to try new things. You must have enough of a foundation core that what you're doing is not just maintaining the foundation and core, but actually giving you room to press out. So she says rewards really help with reinforcement. It's got to be like you press out and then you grab at something you want. Like you get out of it and then you get what you want. Like, you break out of feeling afraid for someone to see your face in pain, but then afterward you grab at that new habit, which is I feel seen. I feel seen. I feel like my pain is being witnessed. Or, you stretch out of the comfort zone and dance freely, and then you're like, wow, I can have grace. I can be making up my own expression, and it's okay. And so it's like these rewards, what you consider reward is, for me, a big reward is being seen, having my pain seen and being witnessed. And another really big reward is feeling free in my expression. So when I break out of my habits, which is like stay still or kind of like hold it in, basically like don't let the surface show what's in the core, those habits become ingrained, and I'm working with the other newer habits that I'm talking about here. And so she says, because it's so tiring for the brain, you need enough sleep. In Judaism, they say a third is good. A third of your lifetime should be rest, but you should be working very hard for the other 2/3. If someone has insomnia or sleep issues often, they are not working physically in the right ways that they're supposed to. That is this Jewish tradition that I grew up with. From the Rambam Maimonides, who was a philosopher, physician, scientist, and spiritual leader. And then there's this idea of being a work, like I kind of touched on this, but being the work in process and also being a work of art, that's to have grace. To say this is in and of itself so amazingly, beautifully glorious. This is what life is. Even if it's kind of tragic, you would go to a movie to watch a horror, to watch tragedy, to see a symphony where people are sobbing because of loss. And yet, it's a work in process when we're going through it. Who am I without this? Or what am I going to do? And we know what it's been like already. What's, kind of like the old self is already with us. We already know like how we do things and our old habits. And it's basically like we don't know what's to come. That's the shift. The shift is we don't know what our new habits will bring. We don't know. And that's the first step. That's why it takes a lot of mental energy. You have to feel okay with not knowing what's going to happen. She also says it's easy to forget the payoff when you're doing this hard work of the new habits and for self-sabotage. Like, why do I not do it? I keep trying to make these new habits, but I keep breaking them. And she says we forget the payoff. The payoff is you don't have to expend as much energy. So simply, it takes a lot of work to focus on this newness. And so she says, like, when the pressure rises, we need to reassure ourselves enough that we can actually reflect on, okay, so I'm failing, I'm sabotaging, I'm breaking my opportunity, and yet, or I'm burning a bridge, yet there's a reason for this. Why am I playing it safe, or why am I afraid to grow into this new territory? Reconsidering the reasons for why I'm doing this new thing. And she also comments that like a great way to combat that is to stay around good company who are growth-oriented people. We call it sangha, we call it community, we call it congregation, we call it klal in Hebrew, like the collective. And it's when the tide rises, all the boats rise. So that's a way to help us from self-sabotage. We stay around people who believe in their own ability to handle the blessings and the work that comes through that the blessings come through. She says habits are formed from 3 pieces. 1, motivation. 2, ability. How able are you? How motivated are you? And 3, prompt. How prompted are you? Which means like that catalyst, that push. What pushes you? And she says you got to work with each one of them. So motivation is you got to look in the mirror and say, I love you. I trust you. I'm going to look at myself when I say this. I trust you. I love you. She says we have to be able to say, I admire you. I'm so proud of you. And that gives us motivation because it doesn't matter what I'm doing, I'm trying. That's enough. If I was a little kid who never learned how to stack something, and every time I did it and I messed up, I only did 2, then I did 5, I'd be so proud of myself. And I'd say, to somebody who never could walk and how they're working and shaking just to take 2 steps, I'd say, I admire your strength. And that's how we have to look at ourselves. That gives the motivation. Then she says we've got to focus on the ability. The ability here is how able am I is a mindset. Because you may not be able to lift 10 pounds yet, but you wouldn't have a problem lifting 5 till you can lift 10, and then lift 10, and then you lift 15. So we got to quiet the mind. She says the subconscious mind perceives the reality around us. And the universe that we're perceiving will be funneled through a filter of trying to prove us right. Our mind is trying to prove us right. So we have these agreements, these agreements, these beliefs, and my perceptions are trying to prove me right to show that I'm seeing correctly, and whatever I'm focusing on. And it doesn't actually say that this is good for me. If I see, they're talking about me, they're gossiping, it may not be true. They're talking about something else. It doesn't know if the outcome is good or bad, but it does, because it doesn't have attachment to the outcome, but it is trying to prove me right subconsciously. And actually these thoughts the subconscious mind is influencing 90 to 95% of our decisions. That little 5% window where we can create new habits becomes widened when we start to meditate. Meditation is not about changing your thoughts. It's about letting them come to awareness. When you look at them, they can develop. The awareness is like a water, a nourishment. They can become possible to develop. And that's what ability is. You spend time with lifting the weight, you see it's not that bad. You spend time seeing what it's like to wake up earlier than you're used to, or wear different clothes, or speak in a different way. Your abilities come from the ability to quiet the mind, so that any beliefs that we can't do it, or agreements that we won't be strong enough, and then that might actually have a bad outcome. These thoughts actually might prevent us from being happy and at peace. And so obviously it's worthwhile to spend time meditating, even if you just only see negative thoughts. Just spending time with your own mind, quieting the mind's need to get your attention. They're talking about me. They don't like me. I'm not going to make it. I always fail. Those are not true. They're just the mind trying to find ways to reinforce what you're not paying attention to prove to you. So by me allowing my thoughts to come into awareness, like an inhale, and then let it go. I'm not the breath, I'm the breather. I'm not the thought, I'm the thinker. And so pretty much, the final aspect is the prompt. And she says you got to create cues that trigger the habit. She says, let's say you're trying to work out. You got to wear your workout clothes till you're ready to exercise. Let's say you're trying to eat healthy. You got to have the food out to cook so that you don't quickly order food. Little things like that. You got to have a reminder on your phone every few hours to drink some water if you're trying to stay hydrated. And now I'm going to talk about some of the thoughts that can surface when I'm open. What does this mean to have a dense core now with these new habits, that new things can flow out where I'm not so resistant to them? Like, what if it's true? No, I'm not. I'm the thinker. So I see, oh, I'm the breather. So one thing that came up for me was how I'd been smoking cigarettes to deal with some stress recently, and my body told me, it's not good for you. It's just not good for you. And I learned some of these when I was really open after going to the gravesite of a very holy man. I felt such white light going through me, and I felt blockages released. And so I was able to see this thought. My mind is trying to tell me smoking cigarettes is bad, and it's been trying to communicate that in ways in my perceptions. I don't know when I'm going to stop, but at least my aim is to be able to cut back, eventually stop. Maybe one thing I can do is get those herbal cigarettes, which without the tobacco, and which are have effects of, I don't mean even CBD, I mean like lavender, and there's plenty of them. I think one is called Blue Lotus. They have different effects. Another one is, there's a man close to me, and I got this sense I may marry him. It feels so incompatible right now. It feels like space. It feels like corruption in some ways. It feels like confusion. But suddenly I realized that I might marry this person when I was very open. And, my perceptions have been trying to convey this to me, that this might be someone I marry eventually. This might be part of the journey toward partnership for me, without me realizing that sometimes it's like you go very far apart to come back together. It's not clear. Another one is that I can pray for my father from afar. I can help him, I can honor him without having to deal directly with him when he struggles, by being able to pray for him. Another one was I can wash my hands in the ritualistic way of 6 times after I use the bathroom, or before I eat bread, or bread that's from a certain type of wheat. And I could look at it as this blessing through the washing to symbolize this idea that abundance is leaving me. Abundance came in, abundance goes out. Asher means abundance, or Ashrei, or Ashra. And you would also say that like the tribe of Asher, the 10th tribe, was blessed with fat bread. And when you eat fat bread, like oily, like you dip your bread in oil, you have to poop it out and it'll come out. And you say, I'm grateful for this fat bread that, left me. And I also realized sometimes I think I'm the scholar, but I might actually be the businessman who supports the scholar. That could be more of who I am. There's another of the two, Asher is one of the 10 tribes I mentioned, number 10. Number 5 and 6 is Yisachar and Zvulun, who were twins. Not twins exactly, but they had a twin partnership. They were partners. Yisachar would learn, and Zvulun would work. He worked near the waters, and he was a businessman. And then the other thought that came up was, and this is something I saw for a second that was triggered on a television that was playing this holy man speaking, and he was saying, like, in the summer, kind of, in the vacation, you might lessen your work, right? But you still have to increase your energy and vigor. You can't just, like, look at it like a vacation from real life. It's still real life is happening. And he says the way to continue increasing yourself without having to, like, necessarily overdo it, because it is summertime and things slow down and the heat rises, and so we're not eating as much, and things are different. The heat helps us to be a little more reflective and sedentary without rushing as much, but we get a lot of energy from the sun. So this, he says, we can do good deeds and learn the truth. We can, in our actions, in our thoughts, in our words, in our focus, intention, we can still stay in what gives us energy and vigor, like what gives us vitality. And in a talk with my friend, I realized that, denial of all these things is because I didn't have hope. Maybe I can't stop smoking cigarettes. What am I going to do when I'm not working, for some time? What if I am not able to be, able to pay bills as a scholar? What if, I'm having issues with the food coming in and out? How do I help my father? What if I love this man, but I can't be with him now? And so this is like this denial is the absence of hope. And it's kind of like when you believe in the solution, it gives me the strength to look at these mistakes or these areas where I can grow. Or I'm saying they're different. It could be a mistake, could be an area to grow, could be like kind of getting an adjustment, and I'm able to look at these adjustments when I'm open. And it's coming from the core of me. And finally, I'll mention that I spoke, or I have 2 more things to share. One is I had a talk with my friend, and she said 4 plus 4 is 8, which is a marriage. And, you have 4 corners and 4 corners, and it needs a foundation. The house needs a strong foundation. If there isn't peace and harmony inside, there isn't going to be peace and harmony, outside. So when there's not peace and harmony inside, there's a sign that's a signal that there's not the godliness that we can be filled with. Now, you can name this what you want. Peace. God is peace. God is love. God is truth. God is light. But God is one. If there's not, these are all descriptions. The only true description we can say of God that can last in all lineages everywhere is oneness. So one. So she, my friend Michelle was telling me, if the devil energy is coming in to destroy me, in other words, it creates division. So the real me, the core, starts to get broken kind of. I'm doing this, but I mean this. I mean this, but I'm doing this. And there's consequences to not having the body temple be taken care of. For example, the smoking cigarettes or being around stress. This, or being unsafe with the body, being unclean. She says the consequences of this body temple causes damage when we're not filled with the oneness. I want to do this, but I'm doing this. Or I'm doing this, but I want to do that. So she really talks she says one of the best ways to grow spiritually is to become more one. And she's right. And that brings harmony and peace inside. Being who I'm supposed to be, or I'm doing what I want to do. And there's challenges, of course. I may want one thing more than I want the other thing. And now my final thing I wanted to share was more a little bit about God, oneness of God. And, I grew up Jewish, and of course, God is one. Hashem Echad. The one who cannot be named is one. In other words, he can't be in a form, because to perceive a form is separate from everything that's not that form. It's taking a shape, means everything outside the shape. It's like a cookie cutter. It's now a gingerbread man, or it's like a triangle, but everything outside of it is not triangle. So ready edges. So oneness, really, okay, beyond form. And I want to share from Sikhism, and it's 0.4% of the population, 25 million followers, from India. And Sikhism centers on the belief that all humans have direct access to God without rituals or priests, and that everyone should be equal regardless of age, caste, or gender. Sikhs are monotheistic, believing in one God. Waheguru is a constant, without gender, without form or name. They believe in reincarnation and the 3 duties: praying, working, and giving to charity. So I'm going to pause here for a second before I continue and say this is exactly what that holy man who's Jewish, when he says that you want to really be work, and I spoke about Maimonides, work before you rest. And here, I've been talking about my thoughts that could come up is me kind of praying in a way for to not be in denial, to be in the truth, to be the thinker, to be the believer. And habits is like praying, you want to be a better person. So this is all really a type of worship, and giving to charity is a way of sharing what we have. And from our core, if we have abundance, we can give. If we don't treat others like we want to be treated, there's a division. So I would like to say that I'm sharing this because it totally matches what I've shared about Judaism, but also other traditions, and also, of course, even, a little less spiritual, like when I'm talking about habits or, and so on. I'm going to continue. Sikhs work to avoid 5 vices: lust, greed, attachment, anger, and pride. You can imagine how much habit work you have to do to make progress in these areas, which are habitual. Their life is marked by daily prayer and reading of their holy book, the Guru Granth Sahib. In that, on page 1299, it says, and this is from Guru Nanak, okay? I am a stranger to no one, and no one is a stranger to me. Indeed, I am a friend to all. And today, when I prayed, I cried to God and said, you're like my father. You're like my husband. You gotta be, because they can't be what I need. They're another human. And, a friend, you're my friend. You're my companion on the journey. The oneness, right? So that's our constant compass, going back to oneness. So I wish you to look at your habits for a foundation that's a core. And so much, and to be in the knowledge that so much can surface when the density is surrounded by openness. Thank you for sharing the time with me.